I would have been particularly happy if we are in a position to own our music. Owning our music in the sense that there is no doubt that our Nigerian new wave music is making massive impact globally. Unfortunately, we are living in a world now that is so much individualistic. People are now operating in their private space and they don't care about what happens elsewhere. There are fewer artists that will dare to go into the Afrobeat as in its original state, that will not be seen as doing something that is not original because they cannot be Fela. And that is why the Afrobeat authentic music is being played by just a few people, principally people from the Kuti family. I would have preferred that our music name shouldn't be something that will be controversial as not being sure that this is Nigerian sound. Yeah, this is Mavin Grandpa, the president of Artists Managers Association in Nigeria. I have at the back of my mind that people are conscious that technology will always play a role in the evolution of music, and that is why the various aspects of the music evolution had what goes on with it. In the case of the period of the vinyl, before you moved over to the cassettes and other technical things that had happened, players in the music industry always knew that there will be change. And at the period of the vinyl, it appeared to be that music was much more soulful and consciously made, and the process of producing music was much more engaging and intimate between the musicians and the producers, and even the use of equipment that brought out the best and the soulfulness of the music itself. So I think the era of the vinyl was much more soulful due to the stage of the music evolution at the point in time. I think the most important thing, the content of the music itself, has to do with the lyrical content, in which case most artists write their songs from certain perspectives that are personal, but in the event that such contents are ideas driven, I believe that artists should look more into their lyrical content which embodies the message they want to communicate to their audience. And if that is done, obviously the message that the artist wants to communicate will resonate with the target audience that they have in mind. There is no way you possibly can come up with content that resonates with everyone, but for your work to cut across to as much people for whom your message is made, I believe the central thing that you should look at should be the message as contained in your lyrics, not necessarily your melody, because people can choose to dance to any sort of melody. Yeah, the turning point in African music has to do with the interventionist ideas and motives of the music promoters globally, who have devised different strategy of ensuring that the monetized value for music is in their favor for returns on their investment. And that is largely evident with the emergence of various distributing and publishing and streaming platforms that come with the digital era that we have found ourselves now. Before now, music had been largely distributed in hard copies in most cases, and that left a whole lot of room for the operation of the fifth columnist as represented by the activities of pirates, which to a large extent have affected the fortunes of people who in the past created monumental materials that are supposed to be priceless and evergreen. However, the popularity of such works did not translate to financial or economic success stories for those who created them. So I believe that the change in the way music is being distributed and handled by certain entities has to a large extent affected African music or Nigerian music, as it were, if we are talking from the Nigerian perspective. I would have been particularly happy if we are in a position to own our music. Owning our music in the sense that there is no doubt that our Nigerian new wave music is making massive impact globally and is enjoying significant global music market share. In that regard, if we have not put in place what will make us to own that music, not necessarily domiciling it as Nigerian music because it is our cultural product for the world, we should at least be in a position to be proud that our new wave music, which is driving the kind of sound that is coming from Africa now, should have been traceable to Nigeria and Nigeria owning that right so that we can proudly say that this is our music. In that case, I have issues with how we have named our music genre, which is making it impossible for us to holistically lay claim to it as our sound, even though it is our music. In contrast to how we have handled our music genre, some people in different parts of the world have to a large extent demonstrated their rights to their music and owning it. For instance, when you talk of reggae music, Jamaica resonates as the place where that music came from. We talk of Amapiano, talk about South Africa, we talk about Hip Life, Azonto, we talk of Ghana. How come our new wave music, which is now being described amongst other several names as Afrobeats, these have robbed us of the right of owning that music, because the name Afrobeats obviously have brought about our genre identity crisis. And if we had to rewrite the history, I would have preferred that our music name shouldn't be something that will be controversial as not being sure that this is Nigerian sound. But as it stands now, when you say Afrobeats, different countries will lay claim to being Afrobeats artists. Ghanaians, Nigerians, Zimbabweans, Kenyans, South Africans, whereas they have their own music, but they all still play in the Afrobeat space, which is not a genre that Nigeria can totally lay claim to as our music. If you ask me, there is no rule that limits artists from experimenting with different types of sound, as long as such music find acceptance within certain demographics of their audiences or fans around the world. However, there has to be something in the center of the soul of the music you want to deliver to the world that defines that music, that makes people to know that this indeed is a genre, notwithstanding that other sub-genres might arise as a result of artists trying to experiment with one type of fusion or the other, which is understandable. But it doesn't in its entirety relegate to the background that there shouldn't be a standalone umbrella genre from which these various sub-genres emerge. You mentioned quite a number of music sub-genres. Fine, that's understandable. These are just attempts at pacifying or introducing something new to audiences who already are hooked to a particular kind of sound. Then when you introduce some other elements into it and call it whatever you choose to call it, so as to be credited as being the one championing that style, that's okay, but it doesn't mean that that's a genre in its own. It could be something sub to the major umbrella body. Talking about the genre in itself. There definitely has to be something that defines it as the style that makes it to be identified as a particular genre. Just like I did say, the creation of Afrobeat has to do with the fusion of high life, jazz, and funk. And it is further embellished with the ideology of the creator who has a Pan-Africanist vision and use his music to play up his activism in speaking on behalf of the masses and fighting military dictatorship. That are the hallmarks that define Afrobeat, and that is why there are fewer artists that will dare to go into the Afrobeat as in its original state, that will not be seen as doing something that is not original, because they cannot be fella. And that is why the Afrobeat authentic music is being played by just a few people, principally people from the Kuti family, who already have this in their DNA, and they can do what that represents what the music is originally intended to achieve. That's why you see people like Sheung, that's why you see people like Femi. If you listen to their music and the kind of lyrical content and the message that it carries, and the various instruments that are used to deliver it, it fits perfectly into what had been originally created. Some of our big stars who are globally celebrated today as Afrobeats artists, mark my words, sooner or later they will be refusing to be boxed into such genre, and might even say that they are not Afrobeats stars. And that way, they are free to experiment and bring new sounds that cut across boundaries without it being caged or gagged as a particular genre. And that's why you can see them breaking new grounds, going into new territories, and doing great things, for which I congratulate them for flying our national colors as Nigerians. However, if the music were to be referred to strictly as Afrobeats, some of them will say, no, we are not Afrobeats.
If you like it good, if you know like you hang, if you like it good, if you know like you hang, if you hang, you go down for nothing. Go carry your body, go police station, you die wrongfully.
Artists. We obviously have sacrificed our message because of the expediency of making fast commercial returns, which is happening. There are more avenues through which music is monetized, and the momentary buzz that brings massive streaming to works of artists who have been commercially successful has nothing to do with maybe your genre or where you come from or whatever. The truth is that when your music is good and resonates with audiences around the world, including those who already have structures to ensure that they gravitate towards your work due to the traffic that your work attracts, and also the particular target audience that belong to certain age bracket that see the use of applications that stream these works to add commercial success story to your profile, well, you will sacrifice something. And that thing you are sacrificing is the authenticity of what makes the sound to be agenda-driven. So the music we have now has no agenda, and if it does, such agenda does not represent a groundswell opinion of what should be our collective interest. Rather, it may be the agenda of the artist per se, which is neither here nor there, because it could be of good influence, it might be of bad influence, depending on who the artist is targeting based on those that are following him or her. Even though we have those who are flying our flag around the world, but their message has to be much more ideas driven so that they can represent us effectively. unfortunately, we are living in a world now that is so much individualistic. People are now operating in their private space and they don't care about what happens elsewhere, despite the fact that everyone is in everybody's face. But people prefer to operate as lone rangers or solo whatever. Back in the days, there was much more spirit of camaraderie. There was much more love. There was much more unity amongst creatives. People worked more together, both during the production process to the promotion processes that were adopted at the time. That's before the dawn of the use of digital and social media space to promote music. You find that people work more like brothers, like sisters. You come to a recording session and you see session men working. It's like a family, with each person specializing on what they do. And that period of production creates a whole lot of bonding that when you see when artists or creatives work, you would think that they're from the same family. All that is now gone. People can have production kits and stay in their house, one-man studio. They will produce whatever they want to produce and jump on it. Even AI can create sound for you and you jump on it. So people are now beginning to be more detached and don't work together, and you have more of the PhD syndrome, pull him down or pull her down, where people are faceless, attacking themselves using internet trolls and so on and so forth. These are things that are negative, and I do not think it is right. If we could have platforms that celebrate proper and positive networking, collaborations, and effective professional interface amongst people who are players within the music space or the creative industry, I think it will be helpful, because no one have monopoly of wisdom to make things happen. But two heads, they say, are better than one. So I will advocate that people still work in viable platforms that promote unity. The younger generations, for young people who want to go into music, they should realize that all that glitters is not gold. There is a whole lot of hype associated with what they see out there, and the type of hype that they see that possibly influence them may not be the reality on ground. And for them to be carried into mainstream, they need to have something tangible and positive to offer, and not being driven by selfish motives or driven by the fallacy that once they are in the music industry, everything will be as rosy as they see it painted in the social media. No, they must be well-educated. They must approach their craft from a professional standpoint and not just freestyling and jumping on things or picking up negative vibes and try to use that as selling points for their art or their creativity. They must know that their message that they want to offer the world must be genuine, must be original, must be ideas-driven, and above all, they must act professionally at all times and try to build their personality to represent a brand that they would like to be associated with, and not project themselves in a wrong way due to the negative influences they may have picked up from social media. With time, they will do better, and if they think they are having challenges, they should employ the services of competent artist managers and mentors who will teach them and show them the ropes, and with time, they'll be fine.